Your Honor, I'm my dad's lawyer. Maya Williams's voice trembled, but she did not step back. She held the old brown briefcase tightly and forced herself to look at the judge. Judge Victor Harlan stared down from the bench. Your father's lawyer? He said. Miss Williams, this is a federal courtroom, not a neighborhood meeting. We do not let angry black girls walk in with cheap briefcases and mistake noise for law. A few people in the gallery laughed. Maya swallowed hard. Your Honor, I'm not pretending. My father didn't steal anything. Harlan leaned forward, amused and cruel. Of course, the innocent janitor, the crying daughter, and the evil system. Is that the little story you came to perform? Maya glanced toward her father at the defense table. Samuel Williams sat in an Orange County-issued shirt, exhausted and humiliated. But when he looked at her, his eyes were still gentle. Maya, Samuel whispered. Please sit down. She shook her head. Daddy, they didn't read the file. Judge Harlan's face hardened. Do not bring race into this, Miss Williams. Your father is not on trial because he is black. He is on trial because he was trusted with keys and behaved exactly as people feared he would. Maya lifted her chin. The evidence is wrong. Harlan gave a thin smile. That is usually the first lie. Guilty people teach their children to repeat. Samuel lowered his head as the gallery chuckled again. Maya's voice shook, but she forced the words out. I have access logs. I have a timeline. And I have proof my father couldn't have done what they said. Proof? Harlan asked. Did someone at a community center teach you that word and tell you the court would tremble? No, Your Honor, Maya said. The pages don't match. For the first time, the judge's smile faded. Behind the prosecution table, Charles Whitfield smiled faintly, the senior partner whose sworn statement had helped put Samuel in chains. Harlan tapped his fingers on the bench. Approach. Carefully. Since you seem to believe loose paper can replace education, discipline, and a law license. Maya walked forward and opened the briefcase. Your Honor, she said. The discovery packet shows. Harlan snapped his hand out. Give it here. Maya lifted the folder. He grabbed it roughly and shoved it sideways, and the stiff corner scraped across the inside of her wrist, cutting a thin red line into her skin. The folder slipped from her hand, scattering pages across the courtroom floor. A few people gasped, while others laughed softly. Harlan looked down at the papers. Miss Williams, if these documents are so important, perhaps you should learn how to hold them. Though I understand careful hands and proper manners may not be common where you come from. Maya froze. Samuel pushed himself up. Maya. Harlan's voice cracked across the room. Restrain the defendant. Samuel raised both hands. Your Honor, she's bleeding. I'm only trying to help my daughter. She is embarrassed, Mr. Williams, Harlan said coldly. Not dying. Learn the difference. The bailiff grabbed Samuel's wrist and forced him back. Samuel's hip struck the table. His knee hit the floor, and Maya cried out before she could stop herself. Daddy. The cuffs clicked around Samuel's wrists. He winced, but he kept his voice calm. I'm all right, baby. Pick up the papers. Don't stop. Maya dropped to her knees. Her cut wrist brushed one page, leaving a faint red mark near the margin. Harlan watched from above. There. Pick them up. At least, that is honest work. The words hit harder than the fall. Maya gathered the pages one by one. Page 17, page 29, the timeline, and the building map. When Charles Whitfield's polished shoes appeared beside one of the access logs, Maya looked up just enough to see him smiling, and that silent smile told her everything he wanted her to understand. Maya picked up the page near his shoe and stood. Harlan tilted his head. Are you finished with your little floor show? Maya ignored him and turned to Paul Reiner, her father's public defender. She placed 2 pages in front of him. Mr. Reiner, page 17 says, my father's keycard opened the restricted records room at 124A. Paul looked down and frowned as Maya placed the second page beside it. Page 29 says the same keycard opened the basement supply cage at 1:24 a.m. Maya pointed to the map. Those rooms are on opposite sides of the building. The courtroom quieted. Maya wiped her wrist against her dress. My father cleans floors. He doesn't teleport. Paul stared at the documents, and his tired face slowly changed. Judge Harlan's eyes narrowed. Mr. Reiner? Paul rose. Your Honor, the defense requests a brief recess to review a material discrepancy in the access records. Harlan took the pages from him and read them without expression. Mr. Reiner, the judge said, did you review these records before today? Paul swallowed. Not fully, Your Honor. Maya felt those two words cut deeper than her wrist. Her father's life had been sitting inside a folder no one had bothered to read. Harlan folded the pages and looked at Samuel. Mr. Williams, I will give you one chance to show responsibility. Plead guilty today, and this court may consider a measured sentence. Continue letting your daughter turn this room into a circus, and if the state's evidence holds, I will make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison. Maya stepped forward. Please, Your Honor. He didn't steal anything. Harlan ignored her. Mr. Williams, how do you plead? Samuel looked at Maya. His wrists were cuffed behind him. His shoulder was tense from the fall, and shame, fear, and love moved across his face all at once. Daddy, Maya whispered, tears breaking through. Please don't. You didn't do it. Don't let them take your name. Harlan's voice turned colder. Answer the court. Samuel opened his mouth, but no sound came. Then Paul Reiner stood straighter. Your Honor, my client will not enter a plea under threat, while a material discrepancy in the state's evidence remains unresolved. The defense renews its request for recess. Harlan stared at him. You are choosing to follow a black girl's little pile of paper over sworn evidence? Paul looked at Samuel, then at Maya. For the first time today, Your Honor, I believe I am following the evidence. Harlan set the papers down slowly, his jaw tightening. 15 minutes. Court will stand in brief recess. The gavel came down. Chairs scraped, voices rose, and people who had laughed at Maya now avoided her eyes. Samuel turned toward her. Baby, your hand. Maya looked down at the cut. It's nothing. No, Samuel said softly. It isn't. She stepped closer, careful not to alarm the bailiff. I'm doing what you taught me. I'm telling the truth one piece at a time. Samuel's eyes filled. Then don't let them make you hate yourself for kneeling. I won't, Maya whispered. Across the room, Charles Whitfield buttoned his jacket with slow precision while Judge Harlan stepped down from the bench and disappeared through the side door. To anyone watching from a distance, the judge had just acted fairly by granting a recess. But Maya knew better. The judge had made humiliation look like procedure, cruelty sound like order, and fear look like law. He had tried to turn her father's terror into a guilty plea and had pushed Maya to the floor without ever leaving the bench, yet one page had still stopped him. Before anyone in that courtroom understood why Maya Williams had dared to stand, the truth had already begun 4 mornings earlier, inside a quiet apartment on the west side of Baltimore. Before her father's name was spoken in court like something already ruined, Samuel Williams stood in their small kitchen in West Baltimore, buttering toast, with the careful patience of a man who believed even ordinary things deserved respect. The apartment was old, but clean. The radiator knocked in the corner. A gospel station played softly from the little radio near the sink. Outside, a city bus hissed at the curb, taking early workers downtown before the sun had fully risen. Samuel wore his gray work pants and a white undershirt, his Harrington and Vale uniform folded over the back of a chair. His shoes, polished the night before, waited by the door. Maya sat at the table with a criminal justice textbook open beside a cup of coffee she had made too strong. She had been up late studying case procedure, but she tried to look awake because her father always noticed everything. Samuel placed a plate in front of her. Eat before you go arguing with professors about the Constitution. Maya smiled faintly. I don't argue. I clarify. He gave her a look over the rim of his glasses. That is what every Williams says right before they argue. She laughed, and for a moment the morning felt normal. Samuel sat across from her with his own coffee. Black. No sugar. He always said sugar was for men who had not worked night shifts long enough. Maya had heard that line her whole life. Like most of his sayings, it sounded simple until life made it serious. What did you learn yesterday? He asked. Maya dipped her toast into the soft yolk on her plate. That evidence is only as honest as the people handling it. Samuel nodded slowly. Then, learn to read the hands, not just the paper. She looked up. That sounds like something a lawyer would say. No, he said, smiling. That sounds like something a janitor learns after 22 years emptying lawyers' trash. There was no bitterness in his voice, only truth. Samuel Williams cleaned the offices of Harrington and Vale Legal Group, one of the most respected firms in downtown Baltimore. He had done it for more than 2 decades. He knew the building better than most partners did. He knew which elevator groaned in winter, which conference room thermostat lied, which senior attorney stayed late when he was losing a case, and which people thanked the cleaning staff only when other people were watching. He did not complain. He went to work, did his job well, came home, paid bills, checked on neighbors, and kept his name clean. Maya had once asked him why he cared so much about floors no one noticed. He had answered while wringing out a mop in their kitchen sink after fixing a leak for Mrs. Alvarez downstairs. A clean floor doesn't make a man small, Maya. A dirty heart does. That sentence stayed with her longer than most lectures. Now, sitting across from him, Maya watched him rub his right shoulder before reaching for his coffee. He tried to hide small pains from her, but she had grown up studying him the way other daughters studied family photo albums. You need to ask for fewer night shifts, she said. Samuel shook his head. Night shift pays more. You always say that. And it keeps being true. You're tired, Daddy. He looked at her gently. So are you. Maya closed her textbook. I'm 20. I'm supposed to be tired. Samuel leaned back. 20 is not a medical condition. She rolled her eyes, but she loved him for it. He had raised her alone since her mother died years ago, and he had done it without letting grief turn their home cold. Her mother was not a scene Maya replayed in pictures. She was a presence Samuel kept alive, in stories, in recipes, in the way he insisted Maya stand straight when the world tried to bend her. Before leaving, Samuel changed into his Harrington and Vale uniform. The navy shirt had his name stitched above the pocket. Samuel, not Mr. Williams, not Sir, just Samuel. Maya had always hated that, but he never let her make it into a wound. At least they spell it right, he would say. That morning, he buttoned the shirt slowly, then tucked a small lunch bag into his work tote. Turkey sandwich, apple, a thermos of coffee, and the last slice of pound cake Mrs. Alvarez had brought over after church. Maya stood and adjusted his collar. You have class tonight with Mr. Whitfield again. Samuel's face changed for half a second. So quickly most people would have missed it. Not class, he said. He has some late meeting. I just clean after they finish. You don't like him. Samuel looked toward the window. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. He sighed. Charles Whitfield is the kind of man who looks through people and calls it professionalism. Has he said something to you? Nothing worth carrying into your day. That meant yes. But Samuel would not feed anger without purpose. He believed anger had to earn its place. Maya wanted to press, but the bus outside hissed again. Samuel picked up his coat. At the door, he paused, as he always did. What do we keep when the world gets loud? Maya answered automatically, though this time she smiled. Our name. And what do we never sell? Our peace. He kissed her forehead. Good. Go learn something they can't take. She watched him walk down the hallway, greeting Mr. Jenkins from 3B and asking after his blood pressure, then holding the front door for a nurse coming off a 12-hour shift. That was Samuel. Even tired, he made room for other people. If Samuel's kindness and Maya's love for her father touched your heart, please leave a like and comment your city or state below, because you never know who near you might be watching this story at the same time. Maya did not know then that it would be the last ordinary morning before the world turned against him. By noon, she was in the campus library, shelving returned books between classes, when her phone buzzed. The screen showed a number she recognized from Harrington and Vale's front desk. She answered quietly. This is Maya. A woman's voice trembled on the other end. Maya, it's Denise from reception. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be calling, but I didn't know who else to tell. Maya stepped between two bookshelves. What happened? There was a pause, then a broken whisper. They arrested your father. The aisle seemed to tilt. Maya gripped the metal shelf. No. For what? They're saying he stole money and files. Mr. Whitfield called the police himself. For a moment, Maya could not speak. Around her, students typed on laptops, pages turned. Someone laughed softly at a nearby table, and the whole normal world kept moving as if her father's life had not just been split open. Denise continued, crying now. Maya, I saw them take him out. He kept saying he didn't do it. He kept saying, call my daughter. Maya closed her eyes. Her father returned extra change at grocery stores. He folded church donation envelopes even when he could only put in $5. He once rode the bus 40 minutes back downtown because a cashier had forgotten to charge him for a pack of batteries. He did not steal. Maya? Denise asked. Maya opened her eyes. Something inside her had gone quiet. Not calm, but focused. Where is he? Central booking, I think. Who accused him? Another pause. Charles Whitfield. The name settled between them like a locked door. Maya looked down at her open textbook on the library cart. The chapter heading read, Due Process and the Presumption of Innocence. She almost laughed, but no sound came out. Instead, she picked up her bag. Her professor called after her when she crossed the hallway, but Maya did not stop. She stepped outside into the Baltimore afternoon, where buses groaned, horns sounded, and people hurried past carrying lunches, briefcases, prescriptions, and private grief. She called Paul Reiner's office first because Denise had given her the name of the public defender. No answer. She left a message. Then she called again. Then she called a third time. Finally, standing at the bus stop with her hands shaking around the phone, Maya whispered to herself, paper, proof, not panic. She did not yet know where to begin, but she knew one thing with a certainty deeper than fear. If they were going to bury Samuel Williams beneath a stack of lies, they would have to bury his daughter with him still reading. By the time Maya reached central booking, the afternoon had turned gray over Baltimore. She had taken 2 buses and walked the last 6 blocks because waiting for another transfer felt unbearable. Her phone was nearly dead. Her hands were cold, though the air was not. Every few minutes, she checked for a missed call from the public defender's office, but the screen stayed empty. Inside, the waiting area smelled of old coffee, wet coats, and fear people tried to hide. A television mounted high in the corner played local news with the sound turned low. Men and women sat in plastic chairs, holding folders, purses, paper cups, and silence. Maya gave her father's name at the front desk. The clerk did not look up right away. Samuel Williams? Yes, ma'am. Relation? He's my father. The woman typed slowly. You'll have 15 minutes when they bring him out. Only 15? The clerk finally looked at her. There was no cruelty in her face, only exhaustion. That's what we have. Maya sat with the old briefcase pressed between her knees. She had not eaten since morning. She could still hear Denise's voice. They arrested your father. Mr. Whitfield called the police himself. When they finally let her in, Samuel was already seated behind thick glass. He looked smaller in the harsh light, but when he saw Maya, he straightened as if dignity were a coat he could still put on. She picked up the phone. Daddy. Samuel picked up his. Baby girl. For a second, neither of them said anything. Maya had promised herself she would not cry first. If he saw her break, he might start comforting her, and she did not want him wasting strength on that. What happened? She asked. Samuel took a slow breath. I went in like always. Clocked in at 10. Cleaned the lobby offices, then the West conference rooms. Around midnight, Mr. Whitfield was still there. I saw light under his door. Was that unusual? Not for him. He likes people to know he works late. Maya almost smiled, but it died quickly. Then what? I cleaned 14, then 15. I never went into the restricted records room. You know I don't have reason to be in there. But they said your card opened it. That's what they told me. Samuel's eyes lowered. At 1:24 a.m., Maya wrote it down in the small notebook she had bought from the library gift shelf. Where were you at 1:24? Basement supply cage. Getting floor pads. The buffer was leaving marks. Maya's pen stopped. Samuel noticed. What? Nothing yet. Keep going. He studied her face, but continued. By morning, Mr. Whitfield came in with security. Said money was missing from a client trust account, and confidential files were gone. He said my card was used. I told him there had to be a mistake. What did he say? Samuel's jaw tightened. He said mistakes don't open locked doors. Maya closed her eyes briefly. Samuel leaned closer to the glass. Listen to me. I didn't take anything. I know. You don't know because you love me. You know because you know me. I know both ways, she said. His face softened, then hardened again as the weight returned. They said the camera near the records room was down. They said the other cameras don't matter. They said Mr. Whitfield saw me near that hall. Did he? I passed the hall earlier with the trash cart. That's all. Maya wrote faster. Was anyone else there? Samuel hesitated. Daddy. He looked toward the guard, then back at her. 3 weeks ago, I saw Mr. Whitfield in the file destruction room after hours. He had banker's boxes open. Not regular shredding. He looked startled when he saw me. What did he say? He asked what I had seen. And you said? I said I was just there to empty bins. Maya felt the first real shape of the thing. Did you tell anyone? No. I didn't know what I was looking at. And men like him don't like being seen by men like me. The words were quiet, but they carried 22 years. Maya looked at her father's hands through the glass. Hands that had fixed leaking sinks, packed her lunches, ironed old shirts until they looked new. Hands now resting in a place built for guilt. A guard called. 5 minutes. Maya leaned in. They assigned you a lawyer, Paul Reiner. Did he come? Samuel gave a tired nod. For a few minutes. What did he say? That the evidence looked bad. That if I took a plea, maybe it wouldn't be too many years. Maya's throat closed. He said that already? He looked tired, Maya. That doesn't make you guilty. No, Samuel said. But tired people sign papers too. Maya gripped the phone. Don't sign anything. Samuel's eyes filled, though no tears fell. Baby, I don't want you carrying this. You carried me. That was different. No, it wasn't. He tried to smile. You always did argue like your mama. Maya pressed her palm to the glass. Tell me everything you remember. Every room. Every time. Every person. Samuel placed his palm opposite hers. You should be in class. I am, she said softly. This is my lesson. The guard called time. Samuel's voice became urgent. Maya, listen. Whatever happens, don't let them make you ashamed of me. She shook her head. Never. And don't let them make you hard. That almost broke her. I can't promise that today, she whispered. He smiled sadly. Then promise me you'll come back to yourself when it's over. The phone clicked dead. Maya stayed seated even after they led Samuel away. She stared at the notes in front of her. 1:24 a.m. Basement supply cage. Camera down. Whitfield statement. File destruction room. The words did not yet prove innocence, but they proved there were questions no one had bothered to ask. Outside, her phone finally rang. Paul Reiner's office. This is Maya Williams, she said quickly. A receptionist told her Mr. Reiner was unavailable, but could meet before the hearing. Maya asked when. The answer came back. 20 minutes before court. 20 minutes? Maya repeated. I'm sorry. His calendar is full. Maya looked up at the gray sky beyond the courthouse doors. My father's life is full too. The receptionist was silent. I'll be there, Maya said, and hung up before anger could make her rude to the wrong person. On the bus ride home, she opened the public discovery packet Paul's office had emailed after her third request. Most of it was scanned badly. Some pages leaned sideways. She read anyway. She read while the bus rolled past corner stores, row houses, churches with hand-painted signs, and men in work jackets waiting under streetlights. Page 17 showed the restricted records room access. Samuel Williams, 1:24 a.m. Maya's stomach tightened. Then, near the back, she found page 29. Basement supply cage. Samuel Williams, 1:24 a.m. For a moment, the bus noise vanished. She read both pages again. Same name, same minute. Different floors, opposite side of the building. Her hands began to shake, but this time, not from fear. When she reached their apartment, She did not turn on the television. She did not heat dinner. She laid the pages across the kitchen table beside Samuel's empty coffee cup. Then she called Paul Reiner again. No answer. She called Harrington and Vale and asked for the full security maintenance report. They transferred her twice, then disconnected. She searched Monroe's strategic legal consultants because the missing files were tied to a case involving them. She wrote the name down, though she did not yet understand its weight. Near midnight, she sat under the kitchen light with a pen in her hand and her father's old reading glasses beside the papers. She remembered what Samuel had said that morning. Learn to read the hands, not just the paper. Someone had touched these records. Someone had shaped them. And someone had chosen Samuel Williams because they believed his name would be easy to blame. Maya folded page 17 and page 29 into the front of her briefcase. By dawn, she knew she was walking into court with no title, no license, and no protection. But she also knew the first truth. Her father did not need a miracle. He needed someone to make them read. By dawn, Maya Williams had learned the first rule of fighting a lie. Panic wastes time. She slept for less than an hour at the kitchen table, her cheek resting beside the two pages that made no sense. Page 17 said her father's keycard opened the restricted records room at 1:24 a.m. Page 29 said that same card entered the basement supply cage at the same minute. One man, two places, one lie wearing the shape of evidence. When the alarm on her phone buzzed, Maya lifted her head and stared at Samuel's empty chair across the table. His coffee cup still sat by the sink. His work jacket still hung on the hook near the door. The apartment felt too quiet without him moving through it, humming old gospel songs under his breath. She washed her face, wrapped a band around her hair, and packed her briefcase with the kind of care her father used when folding his uniform. Then she took the bus downtown. The Enoch Pratt Free Library opened at 9. Maya was waiting outside before the doors unlocked. Standing among retirees returning books, a man reading yesterday's newspaper, and a nurse in scrubs trying to print forms before her shift. The city was waking around them, but Maya felt as if she had been awake for years. Inside, she went straight to the public computers. A librarian named Mrs. Parker looked over from the desk. Maya, honey, you're not scheduled this morning. I know, Maya said. I need to look something up. Mrs. Parker studied her face. Your father? Maya nodded once. The older woman's expression softened, but she did not ask for details. People over 50 in Baltimore often knew when sympathy was helpful and when it only slowed a person down. She simply slid a guest pass across the counter. Computer 7 is quiet. Printer still jams if you rush it. Thank you, ma'am. Maya spent the next 3 hours searching public records, court procedures, and every article she could find about Harrington and Vale. She read about motions, discovery, access logs, client trust accounts, and chain of custody. She wrote down phrases she did not fully understand yet, then looked them up one by one. She found the case tied to the missing files, a corporate dispute between Harrington and Vale's client and Monroe Strategic Legal Consultants, a rival firm with expensive offices in Washington, D.C. The articles were full of careful language, confidential settlement strategy, protected documents, competitive exposure. Maya translated it in her notebook. Whoever had those files could make a lot of money. She printed what she could afford, then counted the coins in her purse. Mrs. Parker appeared beside the printer. Leave it on my account today. I can pay you back. I know, Mrs. Parker said. That's not why I'm doing it. Maya wanted to thank her properly, but her throat tightened. She only nodded and kept the pages in order. By early afternoon, she walked to the courthouse records office. The room smelled of paper, toner, and time. Shelves lined the walls. A few people waited at the counter, holding folders close to their chests like bad news. Behind the counter sat Evelyn Carter. Maya knew her by sight, though not personally. Evelyn had worked in that courthouse longer than Maya had been alive. She was 67, with silver hair pinned neatly and reading glasses hanging from a chain. Her voice, when she called the next number, was calm enough to make people stand straighter. Maya stepped forward. Ma'am, I need help finding records connected to Harrington and Vale and Monroe Strategic Legal Consultants. Evelyn looked at her over her glasses. That is not a small request. I know. Are you a party to a case? My father is Samuel Williams. He was arrested yesterday. Something passed through Evelyn's eyes, but her face remained still. You have counsel? A public defender. He has too many cases. That is not an answer, but it is familiar. Evelyn glanced at the briefcase. What are you looking for? Maya took a breath. Anything public that connects Harrington and Vale to Monroe. Civil complaints, sanctions, trust account disputes, prior filings. I don't know what matters yet. Evelyn leaned back. The court is not moved by heartbreak, Miss Williams. It is moved by paper. Maya held her gaze. Then teach me which paper matters. For the first time, Evelyn did not look through her. She looked at her. After a moment, the older woman slid a form across the counter. Black ink. Print clearly. Blue copies badly. And never request everything. People who request everything get nothing. Maya picked up the pen. What should I request? Start with docket numbers, then filings, then exhibits, then names. Paper has roots. Follow them. For the next hour, Evelyn did not openly help her. Not in a way anyone could accuse. She simply corrected a date here, pointed to a terminal there, and said things like, "That drawer is for civil matters." Or, "If a company changed names, the old name still leaves a footprint." Maya followed every hint. She found a wrongful termination complaint filed 8 months earlier by Tanya Reed, former accounting supervisor at Harrington and Vale. Most of the case had settled quickly, but one public attachment listed concerns about irregular movement within client-held funds. The phrase made Maya sit very still. Evelyn noticed. Found something? Maybe, Maya said. A woman named Tanya Reed. Evelyn's mouth tightened almost invisibly. Accounting people usually leave quietly unless they know numbers that won't stay buried. Maya wrote the name in capital letters. She also found a filing mentioning Charles Whitfield as senior partner overseeing the disputed corporate files. His name appeared again beside the missing documents, and beneath one older Monroe-related case, she saw Judge Victor Harlan's name attached to a procedural order. It meant nothing yet, only a name in a sea of paper. Still, Maya copied it. By the time the records office lights flickered toward closing, Maya's briefcase was heavier. Not with proof, not yet, but with direction. Evelyn stamped one final request form and handed it back. You understand something, Miss Williams. A record does not save anyone by itself. Someone has to know how to put it in front of the right eyes. Maya looked down at the forms. I don't know how. No, Evelyn said, softer now. But you are learning faster than most. Maya hesitated. Why are you helping me? Evelyn removed her glasses and cleaned them slowly. I have watched a great many people walk into this building believing truth would be enough. It rarely is. But every now and then, someone walks in willing to do the work truth requires. Maya swallowed. My father didn't steal. Then don't waste your strength saying that to people who profit from not hearing you. Evelyn said. Make them read. The words struck Maya so deeply she had to look away. That night, back in the apartment, she spread the papers across the kitchen table. Page 17, page 29. Monroe, Charles Whitfield, Tanya Reed, Judge Harlan's name in an old filing. None of it formed a full picture yet, but the edges were appearing. She reheated soup Samuel had made 2 nights earlier and could not bring herself to eat more than 3 spoonfuls. Then she called Paul Reiner again and left a message that was no longer polite. Mr. Reiner, this is Maya Williams. My father's access logs contradict each other. There is a former accounting supervisor named Tanya Reed connected to trust fund irregularities. There are public filings involving Monroe Strategic Legal Consultants. I need you to read the packet before court. Please. I am begging you as his daughter, but I am asking you as someone who has evidence. She hung up before her voice broke. Near midnight, she placed the pages in order and wrote labels on sticky notes. Her handwriting grew steadier with each tab. Access conflict, trust account, Monroe, Charles, questions for counsel. At 2 a.m., she found the building map of Harrington and Vale from an old leasing brochure. The restricted records room and the basement supply cage were on opposite sides of the building, separated by elevators, hallways, and locked doors. Samuel could not have done it, not unless paper could bend time. Maya sat back, exhausted, and looked at the old briefcase. It no longer seemed too small. It looked like the only weapon she had. By morning, when she walked toward the courthouse, she was afraid. Of course, she was afraid. But fear was no longer driving her. The papers were. By the time Maya reached the courthouse, her hands were cold around the handle of the briefcase. She had not slept enough to call it rest. Her eyes burned, her stomach was empty, and every step up the courthouse stairs felt like walking into a place built to remind people like her how small they were supposed to feel. Still, she kept moving. Page 17 and page 29 were in the front pocket, marked with yellow tabs. Behind them were the building map, the Monroe filings, Tanya Reed's name, and a list of questions Paul Reiner had not answered. Inside, she found Paul outside courtroom 4B, hunched over his phone with a paper cup of coffee in one hand. "Mr. Reiner," Maya said. He looked up, tired before the day had even begun. "Miss Williams, I got your messages. Did you read the access logs?" "I looked at them." "That isn't what I asked." Paul rubbed his forehead. "I have 83 open cases. I'm not saying that to excuse myself. I'm saying it because this is the room we're all trapped in." Maya's voice softened, but only a little. "My father is trapped in a cell." Paul looked away. She opened the briefcase and pulled out 2 pages. "This one says his keycard opened the restricted records room at 1:24 a.m. This one says the same card opened the basement supply cage at 1:24 a.m. Those rooms are on opposite sides of the building." Paul glanced down. "It could be a system error. Then why is no one asking who caused it?" Before Paul could answer, the bailiff opened the courtroom door. "Williams' case," he called. Maya saw her father a minute later. Samuel was brought in with his wrists cuffed, his face drawn but his back straight. When he spotted Maya, his eyes changed. The fear did not leave them, but love rose above it. "Daddy," she whispered. He gave the smallest shake of his head, warning her not to make things worse. But things were already worse. They had been worse since a powerful man pointed at him, and the system believed him. Court began quickly. Assistant District Attorney Mark Ellison stood first, clean and confident. "Your Honor, the state requests that the defendant be held pending further proceedings. Mr. Williams had access to the building. His key card entered the restricted records room at the exact time the files disappeared, and a senior partner at Harrington and Vale has provided a sworn statement, placing him near the area." Judge Victor Harlan looked down at Samuel as if he were a problem already solved. "Mr. Reiner," Paul rose slowly. "Your Honor, Mr. Williams has lived in Baltimore his entire life. He has worked at Harrington and Vale for 22 years. He has no prior record and no history of failing to appear. We ask for reasonable conditions of release." Ellison shook his head. "The stolen material involves confidential corporate files and $75,000 connected to a client trust account. The state considers him a flight risk." Maya's throat tightened. Flight risk. Her father did not even own a car. Judge Harlan folded his hands. "Mr. Williams, these are serious charges. Theft of protected files, trust funds, and potential corporate espionage. If convicted, you may be facing decades." Samuel swallowed. "Your Honor, I didn't take anything." Harlan's eyes hardened. "You will speak through counsel." Maya turned to Paul, waiting for him to challenge the evidence. He did not. He only lowered his eyes to his notes. Ellison continued. "The state also notes that Harrington and Vale has fully cooperated and provided internal records. There is no indication at this time that the firm's evidence is unreliable." That sentence pushed Maya to her feet before fear could stop her. "Your Honor, I object." The courtroom turned. Harlan's mouth curved. "And we arrive at the daughter." Maya's fingers tightened around the briefcase. "Your Honor, I'm my dad's lawyer." The courtroom laughed. Harlan laughed with them, and then cut her down with words sharp enough to make her face burn. He mocked her school, her briefcase, her place in the room, and the idea that someone like her could stand before him with anything worth hearing. But Maya did not sit. When he ordered her to approach, she walked forward and tried to hand him the file. He shoved it hard enough that the folder burst open, the corner scraping a red line across her wrist. Papers flew across the courtroom floor. "Miss Williams," Harlan said coldly, "if these documents are as important as you claim, perhaps you should handle them more carefully." Maya dropped to her knees and began gathering the pages from the dusty floor. Samuel rose to help her, but Harlan snapped, "Restrain the defendant." The bailiff moved fast. Samuel raised his hands, saying he was only trying to help his daughter, but he was turned back toward the table. His hip struck the edge, his knee buckled, and he dropped hard before the cuffs clicked around his wrists. "Daddy," Maya cried. "I'm all right," Samuel said through pain. "Don't stop. Pick them up." So she did. She picked up page 17, then page 29, then the timeline, then the map. Charles Whitfield's polished shoes appeared near one of the fallen pages, and when Maya glanced up, he was smiling. That smile steadied her more than kindness could have. It told her he expected her to stay down. She stood. "Mr. Reiner," she said, handing Paul the first 2 pages. "Page 17 says my father's keycard opened the restricted records room at 1:24 a.m. Page 29 says the same card opened the basement supply cage at the same minute." Paul looked at the pages. Maya's voice shook, but the words stayed clear. "My father cleans floors. He doesn't teleport." The laughter died. Paul stared for another second, then rose. "Your Honor, the defense requests a brief recess to review a material discrepancy in the access records." Ellison objected at once. "This may be a technical irregularity. The defendant was present in the building. A respected senior partner has given a sworn statement." Maya wanted to answer, but Paul lifted one hand slightly, asking her to let him speak now. Judge Harlan reviewed the pages. "Mr. Reiner, did you review these records before today?" Paul's face tightened. "Not fully, Your Honor." Maya felt those words like another wound. Harlan turned his gaze to Samuel. "Mr. Williams, before this proceeding is delayed further by your daughter's performance, I will give you one opportunity. Plead guilty today, and this court may consider restraint. Continue this spectacle, and if the state's evidence holds, I will not hesitate to see you spend the rest of your natural life in prison." Maya's heart nearly stopped. "Please, Your Honor," she said, tears breaking loose. "He didn't steal anything. Please don't make him say that." Harlan ignored her. "Mr. Williams, how do you plead?" Samuel stared at Maya, his wrists cuffed, his shoulder tense from the fall. He looked like a man being asked to choose between his name and his daughter's future. "Daddy," Maya whispered, "please don't let them take your name." Paul stood straighter, the dusty pages in his hand. "Your Honor, my client will not enter a plea under threat while a material discrepancy in the state's evidence remains unresolved. The defense renews its request for recess." Harlan stared at him. "You are certain, Mr. Reiner?" Paul looked at Samuel, then Maya. "For the first time today, Your Honor, I believe I'm following the evidence." The room held still. Finally, Harlan set the papers down. 15 minutes. Court will stand in brief recess. The gavel came down. People rose, but no one laughed now. Maya stepped toward Samuel, careful not to alarm the bailiff. "Baby," Samuel said, eyes wet. "Your hand, it's nothing." "No," he said softly. "It isn't." Maya looked at the thin cut, then at the dusty pages in Paul's hands. "I'm telling the truth, one piece at a time." Samuel held her gaze. "Then don't let them make you hate yourself for kneeling." "I won't," she whispered. Across the room, Charles Whitfield buttoned his jacket with slow precision. Judge Harlan disappeared through the side door. To everyone watching, he had just allowed fairness, but Maya felt the cold beneath it. It was the feeling of a man who had humiliated her, frightened her, and still opened the door just wide enough for her to walk into whatever waited next. The 15-minute recess did not feel like mercy. It felt like borrowed air. Paul Reiner pulled Maya into a quiet corner outside Courtroom 4B, still holding the dusty access logs. "Tell me everything you found." Maya looked back toward the courtroom door. "Now you want everything?" Paul accepted the hit. "Yes, I earned that." She opened the briefcase with her uncut hand. "My father's card shows 2 locations at the same minute. The missing files involve Monroe Strategic Legal Consultants, and there was a former accounting supervisor at Harrington and Vale named Tanya Reed. She filed a complaint 8 months ago about irregular movement in client trust funds. Paul's tired face changed. Trust funds? Yes. Do you have her number? No. But I found an old filing address. Paul looked at the courtroom door, then back at Maya. If what you're saying is true, this is bigger than your father's access card. Maya's voice dropped. It was always bigger. They just picked him because he was easy to blame. The recess ended before they could say more. Paul asked for time to investigate the discrepancy, and Judge Harlan, cold but controlled, allowed a short continuance. Samuel was not released, but the plea was stopped. For Maya, that was not victory. It was a crack in the wall. That afternoon, she found Tanya Reed in a small cafe near Lexington Market. Tanya was 39, neatly dressed, with tired eyes and a handbag held close in her lap. She looked at Maya as if she already regretted coming. "I can't help you," Tanya said before Maya sat down. Maya placed the access logs on the table. "My father is Samuel Williams." Tanya's face softened, then closed again. "I heard. They say he stole money from a trust account." Tanya looked toward the window. "People say what they're paid to say." Maya leaned forward. "Did Charles Whitfield steal it?" Tanya's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. "You need to be careful with names like that. My father is in jail because people were careful." That landed. Tanya breathed out slowly. "I worked accounting at Harrington and Vale for 11 years. Client trust money doesn't move because a janitor walks past a locked door. It moves when someone with authority signs, approves, hides, and explains." "Charles?" Tanya did not answer directly. 6 months before I left, I found transfers that didn't match case expenses. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. They were being routed through consulting invoices. "Monroe?" Tanya's eyes snapped back to Maya. "Who told you that name?" "I read it." For the first time, Tanya seemed to really look at her. Maya spoke more softly. "Miss Reed, I'm not trying to drag you into danger. I just need enough to keep my father from being buried." Tanya's voice cracked. "You think I don't know what buried looks like? I had a pension coming, health insurance, a mother who needs medication. They put a separation agreement in front of me and told me silence was the professional choice." Maya nodded. "My father always says dignity is what you keep when people try to price it." Tanya looked away, blinking hard. For a long moment, only the cafe sounds filled the space between them. Coffee grinding, chairs shifting, someone laughing too loudly near the door. Then Tanya opened her handbag and removed a folded envelope. "I kept notes," she said. "Not enough to win by themselves. Enough to show where to look." Maya did not reach for it immediately. "Why give them to me?" "Because Samuel Williams used to empty my trash after midnight and still said good evening like I was somebody. Because when my office was cleared out, he helped me carry a box to the elevator and never asked why I was crying." Tanya slid the envelope across the table. "And because he could not have moved that money." Inside were copied ledger notes, dates, invoice numbers, and one handwritten line circled twice. C. W. Requested reclassification before audit. Maya stared at it. C. W. Charles Whitfield. Tanya's mouth tightened. "That is what you need to prove." Maya folded the papers carefully. "Will you testify?" Tanya shook her head at once. "No, please. No, Miss Williams. You don't understand what people like him can take without ever raising their voice." Maya did understand, but she also understood her father's face behind glass. "If you won't testify," she said, "can Paul Reiner call you?" Tanya gave a sad laugh. "That tired man? He's waking up." Tanya studied her. "And you?" Maya looked at the envelope in her hands. "I don't think I ever get to sleep again." When Maya returned to Paul's office, he was sitting between stacks of case files, eating half a sandwich over a legal pad. She placed Tanya's envelope in front of him. He read the first page, then the second. By the third, his sandwich was forgotten. "Where did you get this?" "From the woman no one asked." Paul leaned back, shame moving across his face. Your father should have had this defense before he walked into court. Yes, Maya said. He should have. Paul nodded slowly. I'll subpoena the trust records. I'll request the full security logs and the administrative access history. And I'll find a way to talk to Tanya Reed without exposing her before she's ready. Maya's eyes stung from exhaustion. Can this save him? Paul looked at the papers again. It can start. That night, Maya went home alone. Samuel's chair was still empty. His work shoes still waited by the door, polished for a shift he had never finished. She spread Tanya's notes beside page 17 and page 29. The lie had a shape now. Access logs, missing files, trust money, Monroe, Charles Whitfield. Maya touched the thin cut on her wrist. In court, they had made her kneel to pick up scattered papers. Now those papers were beginning to stand up. By morning, Paul Reiner had read the envelope 3 times. When Maya arrived at his small office, he had Tanya Reed's notes spread across his desk beside the access logs. His tie was loose. His coffee was untouched. And for the first time since Maya had met him, he did not look merely tired. He looked ashamed. I owe your father an apology, Paul said. Maya stayed near the door. He needs a defense more than an apology. Paul nodded. You're right. On the wall behind him were framed certificates, dusty at the edges. Maya wondered when he had stopped looking at them. Paul tapped page 17, then page 29. The access logs are inconsistent. The state treated them as clean evidence, but they aren't. And Tanya's notes suggest the money was already moving before your father was accused. Then Charles lied. Maybe, Paul said carefully. But in court, maybe is not enough. Maya stepped closer. Then tell me what is. Subpoenas, motions, witnesses, chain of custody, administrative access logs, full trust account records. He looked up at her. And time. My father doesn't have much of that. I know. No, Maya said, her voice quiet but sharp. You know now. Paul absorbed the words without defending himself. I deserved that. She sat down slowly. Paul gathered the papers into neat stacks. I filed an emergency motion this morning. I'm asking the court to compel Harrington and Vale to produce the full security log, not just the pages they selected. I'm also requesting administrative login records, camera maintenance reports, and trust account audit trails. Maya blinked. You did all that? I should have done it before. Yes, she said. He gave a small, painful smile. You don't soften much, do you? My father is in a cell. That'll do it. For the first time. The room breathed. Paul leaned back. I became a public defender because my uncle went to prison on a plea he never should have taken. I thought I'd be the kind of lawyer who stopped that from happening. He looked at the files piled on the floor. Then the years got heavy. One case became 10, 10 became 80, and people turned into folders. Maya said nothing. Paul looked at her directly. Your father became a folder to me. I am sorry. Maya wanted to forgive him because she was tired of carrying anger. But forgiveness felt like a luxury her father could not afford yet. Make him a man again, she said. Paul nodded. That's what we'll do. He handed her a yellow legal pad. Write down every question you have for Tanya Reed, even the ones that sound too simple. Simple questions scare liars because they don't know where the trap is. Maya took the pad. Can you make her testify? I can subpoena her, but forcing a frightened witness onto the stand can backfire. We need her ready. She's scared of Charles. Most people at that firm probably are. Maya looked at the name Harrington and Vale on one of the filings. My father worked there 22 years. They knew him. Paul's face hardened. Knowing a man doesn't always stop people from using him. That sentence followed Maya all afternoon. They worked until the light outside the office windows turned gold. Paul showed Maya how evidence had to enter the record, why a document found by a daughter needed a lawyer to carry it properly, and why truth could still be thrown out if it came through the wrong door. Maya hated that part most. So the truth can be real and still not count? She asked. Paul seethed. Yes, that's not justice. No, he said. That's procedure. Justice is what we try to force through it. By evening, Paul had drafted a witness list. Tanya Reed was on it. So was Denise from reception. the night security supervisor, and the records custodian from Harrington and Vale. Maya added one more name. Charles Whitfield. Paul looked at her. Eventually. Why not now? Because men like Charles are protected by layers. We peel first, then we cut. Maya did not like waiting, but she understood. Before she left, Paul stopped her. Miss Williams. Maya, she corrected. Maya, he said. In court, let me speak first. Not because you don't know things, because if Judge Harlan wants a reason to shut you out, he'll use any interruption. Maya remembered the floor, the laughter, her father dropping to one knee. He already wants to shut me out. Yes, Paul said. So don't give him the key. Outside, Baltimore was settling into evening. Office workers hurried toward parking garages. A bus sighed at the curb. Maya walked past courthouse steps, still carrying the ache of humiliation in her knees. Her phone rang. It was Samuel. The jail call clicked and warned her it was being recorded. Daddy, you sound tired, he said. So do you. I always sound tired. She smiled, despite herself. Paul is working now. There was a pause. Because of you. Because the records don't match. Because you made him look. Maya looked up at the courthouse windows. I don't know if I'm doing this right. Samuel's voice softened. Baby, right doesn't always feel clean when you're fighting dirt. She closed her eyes. I'm scared, she admitted. I know. They laughed at me. I know. They hurt you because of me. No, Samuel said firmly. They hurt me because that is what weak men do when truth gets close. Don't carry what belongs to them. The call timer beeped. Maya, he said quickly. Promise me something. What? Eat dinner. She almost laughed. Daddy, I'm serious. Justice work on an empty stomach makes people mean. That broke something gentle in her. I'll eat. And keep your papers in order. I will. When the call ended, Maya stood under the courthouse lights for a long moment. Then she opened her briefcase and checked the folders again. Access logs. Tanya Reed. Monroe. Charles. Questions for counsel. For the first time since Samuel's arrest, she was not alone in the fight. But somewhere behind the glass towers of downtown Baltimore, Charles Whitfield still believed he could bury a janitor under paperwork. Maya closed the briefcase. Now they had paperwork too. The next morning, Paul Reiner called Maya before she left for class. Do not go to Harrington and Vale alone, he said. Maya paused with one hand on her apartment door. Good morning to you too. I'm serious, Maya. The court granted part of our request. Harrington and Vale has to produce the extended security records by Friday. Charles Whitfield knows we're looking past your father now. Maya looked at Samuel's work shoes by the door. Still polished. Still waiting. Then he should be nervous. Men like him don't get nervous first. They get polite. By noon, Maya understood what Paul meant. She was leaving the legal aid office when a black town car stopped at the curb. The rear window lowered, and Charles Whitfield looked out from the back seat as if the street belonged to him. Miss Williams, he said, may I have a word? Maya kept walking. You can call my father's lawyer. I already did. Charles smiled faintly. Mr. Reiner is on his way. I thought we might speak like reasonable adults before this becomes more painful for everyone. Maya stopped. My father is in jail. It is already painful. Charles stepped out of the car. His suit looked untouched by weather, worry, or conscience. That is exactly why I asked to talk. Paul arrived 10 minutes later, breathless and annoyed. They met in a small conference room near the courthouse. Glass walls, a long table, and a pitcher of water no one touched. Charles sat first. Miss Williams, I admire loyalty. Truly. Many people forget their parents when life becomes inconvenient. Maya sat across from him, briefcase on her lap. My father is not inconvenient. No, Charles said smoothly. He is unfortunate. There is a difference. Paul leaned forward. Say what you came to say. Charles folded his hands. The firm is willing to support a resolution. If Mr. Williams accepts responsibility, we may recommend leniency. There could be assistance for Miss Williams's education, perhaps even a private settlement for emotional distress. Maya stared at him. You want to pay me to stop asking questions? I want to spare you from questions you are not prepared to answer. My father didn't steal your money. Charles's smile cooled. Your father had access. Your father was present. Your father's card opened the room, and his card opened another room at the same minute. A technical irregularity, Charles said. You are building a cathedral out of a clerical error. Maya's voice stayed quiet. No, sir. I'm building a door out of the crack you left. Paul glanced at her, warning her not to go too far. But Charles had heard enough to turn his attention fully on her. You're young, he said. That makes you bold. But boldness is not the same as wisdom. Maya felt the insult, but she did not chase it. Wisdom would have been not framing a man who spent 22 years cleaning your office. Charles's eyes hardened for the first time. Be careful. Paul stood. This meeting is over. Charles did not move. Mr. Reiner, you understand institutions. You know what happens when people embarrass them. Maya rose slowly. Institutions don't get embarrassed. People do. Charles looked at her old briefcase, then at her face. Miss Williams, courtrooms are filled with people who believed being right would protect them. Maya hugged the briefcase tighter. My father believed working hard would protect him. I guess we're both learning. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Charles stood, buttoning his jacket with careful precision. You may think this is courage. I hope you understand, before too long, that it can also be ruin. Maya's stomach tightened, but she kept her voice small and steady. Sir, my father's name is not a problem for you to settle. Charles left without answering. Only after the door closed did Maya realize her hands were shaking. Paul saw it. That was not a conversation. That was pressure. I know. You handled it well. I wanted to throw the water pitcher at him. That would have been less helpful. Despite herself, Maya almost smiled. Paul gathered his notes. He's worried. That means Tanya Reed matters. The trust records matter. Monroe matters. Maya looked through the glass wall toward the courthouse hallway. He wasn't scared of jail. No, Paul said. He was scared of exposure. That evening, Maya went back to the library. She sat at computer 7, the same terminal Mrs. Parker had given her before, and searched every public mention of Charles Whitfield, Monroe Strategic Legal Consultants, and the case tied to the missing files. Mrs. Parker passed behind her with a cart of returned books. You eaten today? Maya did not look up. Coffee counts? It counts as a warning sign. I'll eat later. That is what people say before they faint near the copy machine. Maya sighed, took the peanut butter crackers Mrs. Parker placed beside the keyboard, and kept reading. By nightfall, she found an old article about Monroe winning a procedural advantage in a case 2 years earlier. The judge named in the article was Victor Harlan. She printed it. It did not prove anything. It barely meant anything. Judges handled cases involving big firms all the time. Still, Maya slid it into a folder labeled Questions. When she got home, Samuel called from the jail. His voice sounded thinner. Did something happen? He asked. Maya hesitated. Charles tried to make us settle quietly. Samuel went silent, then said, That means you're near something. I'm scared, Daddy. I know. He talks like he's already won. People who already won don't ask you to stop. Maya looked at the folder on the table. Charles, Monroe, Harlan, Tanya, access logs. What if this gets bigger than us? Samuel's answer came soft but firm. Then don't try to carry it all at once. Carry the next true thing. After the call ended, Maya sat alone in the kitchen. Outside, Baltimore moved under streetlights and sirens, buses and tired workers. Ordinary people going home with names they hoped no one powerful would ever decide to use. Maya opened the briefcase and placed Charles's polite warning beside the evidence. He had tried to make fear sound like concern. She would make concern sound like testimony. By Friday morning, the hallway outside courtroom 4B was no longer quiet. Word had spread about the daughter who had stood up in court with a bleeding wrist and a briefcase full of papers. Some people came because they wanted to see trouble. Others came because they had once watched someone they loved take a plea just to survive the pressure. Maya could feel their eyes on her as she walked beside Paul Reiner, but she kept both hands on the briefcase and said nothing. Paul leaned toward her. Let me lead. I know. If Harlan provokes you, don't answer unless I ask you to. Maya looked at the courtroom doors. He doesn't provoke. He cuts. Paul's face tightened. Then don't bleed where he can use it. Inside, Samuel sat at the defense table, still in custody, but no longer invisible. When Maya entered, he lifted his chin the way he used to when she walked into a school auditorium before a debate. It meant, stand straight. Remember who you are. Judge Harlan entered a moment later. He looked composed, almost bored, as if the last hearing had not left a father cuffed, a daughter on her knees, and a courtroom ashamed of its own laughter. Mr. Reiner, Harlan said, you requested this hearing. I assume you have more than your client's daughter's suspicions. Paul stood. Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Tanya Reed. A low murmur moved through the room. Charles Whitfield, seated behind the prosecution, did not move, but Maya saw his jaw tighten. Tanya Reed walked to the witness stand in a navy blazer and plain shoes. She looked professional, but her hands held the rail a second too long before she sat. She was not a woman seeking attention. She looked like someone who had spent months trying to disappear, only to discover that silence had become a cage. After she was sworn in, Paul approached gently. Miss Reed, how long did you work at Harrington and Vale? 11 years, Tanya said. I was an accounting supervisor. And did your duties include reviewing client trust accounts? Yes. Paul handed her a document. Do you recognize this? Tanya looked at it. Yes. These are notes I kept after discovering irregular transfers. Ellison rose. Objection. Foundation. Paul nodded. We'll lay it, Your Honor. Harlan's eyes rested on Tanya, then on Maya for half a second. Proceed carefully, Mr. Reiner. Paul turned back. Miss Reed, in plain language, what is a client trust account? Tanya glanced toward the gallery, then answered, money that belongs to clients, not the firm. It cannot be used for firm expenses, partner debts, or personal purposes. Could Samuel Williams move money from that account? Tanya's voice steadied. No. He cleaned the floor outside the room. He couldn't authorize $1 inside it. The courtroom went quiet. Maya looked at her father. Samuel's eyes lowered, but this time, not in shame. It was the look of a man, hearing one clean sentence undo a dirty lie. Paul continued. When did you first notice irregular movement? About 6 months before Mr. Williams was arrested. So before the night the state claims this theft occurred. Yes. Ellison shifted at the prosecution table. Paul handed Tanya another page. Do these transfers relate to invoices from outside consulting entities? They do. Was one of those entities connected to Monroe's strategic legal consultants? Tanya hesitated. Charles Whitfield leaned back slightly, his expression calm again. But Maya saw his fingers press together. Paul softened his voice. Miss Reed, you are under oath. Tanya looked at Judge Harlan, then at Charles, then finally at Maya. Yes. Some transfers were routed through consulting invoices connected to Monroe. A murmur rose. Harlan struck the gavel once. The gallery will remain silent. Paul asked, who instructed you to reclassify those transfers? Tanya swallowed. Charles Whitfield. Charles did not react. That made it worse. Paul let the answer sit. Did you question him? Yes. I told him the entries did not match legitimate case expenses. What did he say? Tanya's mouth trembled, but she held the truth in place. He said I was paid to keep books balanced, not to moralize over how partners protected the firm. Maya's grip tightened on the briefcase. Paul asked, what happened after that? I was removed from the account review. A month later, I was offered a separation agreement. Offered? Paul repeated. Tanya's eyes hardened. That was the word they used. And did you sign it? Yes. I needed health insurance continuation. My mother depends on me. Maya heard a few older women in the gallery whisper softly. Not in mockery this time, but recognition. They understood bills, medicine, impossible choices. Paul picked up another document. Miss Reed, did Samuel Williams's name appear in connection with these trust account issues before the alleged theft? No. When did his name appear? After I raised concerns. After the audit questions began. After it became clear someone needed an explanation, Paul's voice lowered. An explanation? Or a scapegoat? Ellison stood. Objection. Harlan looked annoyed. Sustained. Rephrase, Mr. Reiner. Paul nodded. In your professional opinion, was Samuel Williams capable of creating or approving the transactions you discovered? No. Was he capable of altering administrative security logs? No. Was he capable of moving confidential legal files to a corporate competitor? Tanya looked at Samuel. Not unless someone far above him handed him access. He never had. Paul turned to the bench. Your Honor, the defense submits that the state's theory is no longer merely incomplete. It is structurally impossible without assuming powers Mr. Williams did not possess. Harlan's expression remained unreadable. The court will decide what is impossible, Mr. Reiner. Then, unexpectedly, the judge leaned toward Tanya. Miss Reed, you mentioned Monroe. Be precise. Are you saying Mr. Whitfield had a relationship with Monroe Strategic Legal Consultants? Tanya hesitated again. I saw invoices. I saw routed transfers. I saw references that should not have been in our accounting system. Harlan pressed, his voice calm. References to Monroe? Yes. Maya watched him closely. Harlan sounded like a judge searching for truth, but something about the timing felt too neat. He pushed hard only when the answer pointed at Charles and Monroe. Paul resumed. Did you keep copies of your concerns? Yes. Why? Tanya looked down at her hands. Because numbers don't lie, but people make them wear costumes. For the first time, a faint ripple of approval moved through the room. Charles Whitfield stood slowly. Your Honor, this testimony is unsupported speculation from a former employee who left under complicated circumstances. Harlan looked at him. Sit down, Mr. Whitfield. You are not counsel in this proceeding. Charles sat, but his face had changed. Maya saw it. So did Paul. The polished man was still there, but the shine had cracked. Paul asked his final question. Miss Reed, why come forward now? Tanya looked at Samuel, then Maya. Because Mr. Williams carried my box to the elevator the day I left Harrington and Vale. He didn't ask why. I was crying. He just said, Ma'am, I hope whatever door closes on you opens somewhere kinder. A man like that should not lose his life because powerful people needed a name to blame. Samuel covered his mouth with cuffed hands. Maya looked down before the room could see her cry. Harlan cleared his throat. The witness may step down for now. The court will review the submitted materials. As Tanya passed Maya, she whispered, I'm sorry I waited. Maya answered, just as quietly. You came. That was all either of them could afford. Across the aisle, Charles Whitfield gathered his folder and stood. His eyes met Maya's for one brief second. There was no smile now, only calculation. Maya sat beside Paul, her heart pounding. Tanya had not freed Samuel yet, but she had done something almost as important. She had moved the lie out of the shadows and placed it under oath. By the time Tanya Reed stepped down, Courtroom 4B no longer felt like a place built around Samuel Williams's guilt. It felt like a room waiting to see who had lied first. Paul Reiner remained standing, one hand resting on the defense table, the other on the folder Maya had helped him arrange before court. Maya sat beside him now, silent because Paul had told her to let the record speak, but her eyes never left Charles Whitfield. Judge Harlan looked down from the bench. Mr. Reiner, if you have something more than suspicion, now would be the time. Paul nodded. Yes, Your Honor. The defense asks to enter into the record an internal email produced this morning under the court's order. Ellison rose halfway. The state has only just received that material. Paul turned to him. So did the defense. The difference is, we read it. A murmur passed through the gallery. Harlan struck the gavel once. Enough. Proceed. Paul held up the page. The email is from Charles Whitfield's firm account, sent the morning before Mr. Williams was arrested. It reads, Build the timeline around Williams. He had night access. That will be enough. The room went still. Samuel's cuffed hands tightened in his lap. Maya felt her breath catch. Charles stood slowly. Your Honor, that sentence is being stripped of context. Harlan's eyes moved to him. Then provide the context, Mr. Whitfield. Charles adjusted his cufflinks. The firm was attempting to reconstruct building access. Mr. Williams was the only non-partner in the relevant area. Maya wanted to speak, but Paul touched the edge of the table once. A quiet warning, Paul said. Except he was not in the relevant area. The logs place his card in 2 locations at once. The money was moving months before the alleged theft, and Miss Reed testified that Mr. Williams had no authority over trust funds. Ellison looked down at his own files. For the first time, he seemed less like a prosecutor and more like a man discovering the floor beneath him had shifted. Paul continued. The defense also has administrative access records showing that the security log was accessed after midnight by a senior credential. Harlan leaned forward. Whose credential? Paul looked at Charles. Charles Whitfield's. Charles's calm broke for only a second, but the second was enough. That is misleading, he said. Senior credentials are used for maintenance, system audits, emergency access. Paul cut in gently. And falsifying a janitor's route? Ellison stood. Objection. Sustained, Harlan said, but he did not sound angry. He sounded interested. That bothered Maya. Harlan turned to Charles. Mr. Whitfield, did you access the security system that night? Charles hesitated. I reviewed records after the incident. That is not what I asked. The silence lengthened. Charles looked toward Ellison, then at Paul, then briefly at Maya. His eyes did not hold hers long. I may have logged in during the night, he said. There was confusion. Paul lifted another page. At 1:11 a.m., 12 minutes, before the access entry blamed on Mr. Williams, the gallery stirred. Harlan's voice sharpened. Order. Paul placed the document down. Your Honor, the defense submits that Mr. Williams was framed. This time, Ellison did not object immediately. Charles turned toward the bench. Judge Harlan, this has become a circus. A former employee with grievances, a public defender trying to recover from neglect, and a daughter who clearly wants a villain. Maya stood before she could stop herself. I wanted my father home. Harlan's eyes snapped to her. Sit down, Miss Williams. She sat, but her voice had already reached the room. Paul resumed quickly. Your Honor, the defense requests dismissal of all charges against Samuel Williams and immediate referral of Mr. Whitfield's conduct for investigation. Harlan did not answer. Instead, he looked at Charles with a strange, deliberate calm. Who received the documents? Mr. Whitfield? Charles blinked. What? The missing confidential files. If Mr. Williams did not take them, and if your credentials touched the system, then someone did. Who received the documents? Charles's face tightened. I reject the premise. Harlan's voice dropped. Names? Mr. Whitfield. Maya looked at the judge. The question was right. Too right. It moved through the room like a blade already aimed. Charles looked cornered now. Not exposed, but abandoned. I did not steal for myself, he said at last. The words cracked the room open. Ellison whispered, Mr. Whitfield. Charles kept his eyes on Harlan. There were pressures. Financial pressures. Strategic pressures. Monroe had interest in certain materials, but I never intended for this to go as far as it did. Maya heard Monroe and felt the name settle into place. Paul asked quietly, Did you build the timeline around Samuel Williams? Charles swallowed. Harlan spoke before Paul could press harder. Answer. Charles looked at Samuel, but not with remorse. More like irritation that the man had survived the role assigned to him. Yes, Charles said, but he was supposed to take a plea. No one was supposed to dig through every page. Maya's hands went cold. Samuel closed his eyes. For a moment, all the years of clean floors, night buses, packed lunches, and quiet dignity stood against one sentence. He was supposed to take a plea. Paul's voice was rough. Your Honor, there is no lawful basis to continue holding Mr. Williams. Ellison rose slowly. His confidence was gone. Based on the evidence now before the court, the state moves to dismiss the charges against Samuel Williams, pending further investigation. The words seemed too small for what they meant. Harlan nodded. Motion granted. Mr. Williams, the charges against you are dismissed. Samuel did not move. Maya turned to him. Daddy. Only then did he look at her, as if her voice had brought him back into his own body. The bailiff unlocked the cuffs. Samuel rubbed his wrists, then stood carefully, still favoring the knee that had struck the floor. Maya went to him. This time no one stopped her. He pulled her into his arms. "I told you," she whispered into his shoulder. Samuel held her like a man afraid the world might take her too. "No, baby," he said. "You showed them." Around them, people sat in stunned silence. Some looked ashamed. Some looked afraid. Tanya Reed wiped her eyes. Paul Reiner turned away, his face tight with the knowledge of how close he had come to failing this man completely. Charles Whitfield was ordered into custody pending investigation. He did not fight. He only looked at Harlan once, and in that look, Maya saw something she did not understand yet. It was not hatred, it was accusation. Court adjourned in confusion. Reporters rushed into the hallway. Voices rose around Samuel, but Maya kept close to him until Paul helped move them into a quieter side room. There, Samuel sat, free but shaken, and Maya wrapped a napkin around her wrist because the cut had opened again. "You saved him," Paul said softly. Maya looked through the small window toward the courtroom. Then, "Why does it feel unfinished?" Paul did not answer. Later, after Samuel was cleared to leave, Maya realized her briefcase was still beside the gallery bench. She told her father she would be right back and slipped into the courtroom, now nearly empty. The air felt different without the crowd. The floor had been swept, but she could still see in her mind where her papers had scattered, where her father had fallen, where Charles had smiled down at her. She picked up the briefcase. Then she saw it. On Judge Harlan's desk, half hidden beside a stack of files, was a silver paperclip shaped like a small crest. Maya leaned closer. The logo was unmistakable. Monroe Strategic Legal Consultants. Her stomach tightened. That paperclip did not belong in a federal courtroom. It did not belong on the judge's desk after a hearing about stolen documents sold to Monroe. It did not belong anywhere near Victor Harlan, unless the story was not over. A voice came from the doorway. "You saw it too." Maya turned. Evelyn Carter stood there, hands folded, face grave. Maya looked back at the paperclip. "Why is Monroe on his desk?" Evelyn did not move. That is the question people stop asking if they want to keep their jobs. Maya's grip tightened around the briefcase. In the hallway, Samuel Williams was free, but in the quiet of courtroom 4B, Maya understood something colder than fear. Charles Whitfield had fallen. He had not fallen alone. Samuel Williams walked out of the courthouse, a free man. But Maya Williams could not make herself feel free. Her father stood on the sidewalk under a gray Baltimore sky, breathing like the air itself had weight. Paul Reiner spoke softly with reporters near the courthouse steps, repeating that Samuel was innocent and that the case against him had collapsed. Tanya Reed slipped away before cameras could find her. Evelyn Carter remained inside, where records lived longer than applause. Samuel touched Maya's shoulder. "Baby, let's go home." Maya looked back at the courthouse doors. In a minute, he studied her face. "You saw something." She hesitated. After everything he had endured, part of her wanted to give him silence as a gift. But Samuel had never raised her to hide from truth. "There was a Monroe paperclip on Judge Harlan's desk," she said. Samuel's brow tightened. "Monroe? The company Charles sold the files to?" "Yes. Could be nothing." "It could, but you don't think so." Maya shook her head. Samuel looked tired in a way sleep would not fix. "Maya, I just got my name back. I know. I want to sit at our kitchen table. I want coffee in my own cup. I want one morning where nobody calls me defendant." Her throat tightened. "You deserve that. So do you." Maya looked down at the briefcase in her hand. "Daddy." Charles looked at Harlan before he broke, like he expected him to help. Then Harlan pushed him straight toward Monroe and stopped him before he could say anything else. Samuel was quiet for a long moment. "Freedom and justice are not always the same thing, are they?" "No," Maya whispered. "They're not." That night, Samuel slept in his own bed for the first time since the arrest. Maya made grits and eggs, because that was what he always cooked when the world felt too hard. He ate slowly, thanking her after every refill of coffee like a guest instead of a man in his own home. At the kitchen table, he touched the old work shoes by the door. "I don't know if I can go back there." "To Harrington and Vale?" To any place where a man can clean for 22 years and still be used like a dirty rag. Maya sat across from him. Then don't. Bills still come when pride gets wounded. We'll figure it out. Samuel smiled faintly. That is what poor people say before the math starts laughing. Maya almost smiled too, but the paperclip stayed in her mind. Small, silver, wrong. The next morning, she went to the courthouse records office. Evelyn Carter was already there, stamping documents with the steady rhythm of a woman who had survived powerful men by never letting them see her hurry. Maya stepped to the counter. I need to know about Judge Harlan. Evelyn did not look up. Good morning to you too. Good morning, Miss Carter. I need to know why a Monroe paperclip was on his desk. This time Evelyn looked at her. Lower your voice. Maya did. Evelyn closed the folder in front of her and stood. Walk with me. They moved into a narrow records aisle where shelves rose high on both sides. Evelyn ran one hand along the file boxes, as if greeting old witnesses. You saved your father, she said. Most people would stop there. I tried. No, you didn't. Maya let that pass. What do you know? Evelyn's mouth tightened. I know patterns. Patterns are not proof, but they keep old clerks awake. What kind of patterns? Harlan has handled several cases touching Monroe or companies close to Monroe. Procedural rulings, sealed motions, evidence disputes. Nothing obvious enough to scream corruption, but always enough to make one side go quiet. Maya felt her pulse quicken. Why didn't anyone report it? Some did. Quietly. Their complaints died in committees, or they retired early, or their careers became very small rooms. Are you afraid of him? Evelyn answered without shame. Yes. The honesty struck Maya harder than a brave speech would have. Evelyn continued. Fear is not the same as surrender. Sometimes it is inventory. You count what can be taken before you decide what must be risked. Maya leaned against the shelf. Charles wasn't the top. No, Evelyn said. Charles was useful, then expendable. Harlan used me to expose him. I believe so. The words made Maya sick. She thought of kneeling on the dusty floor, of Harlan's insults, of Samuel falling, of the judge allowing the recess. Only after Paul took the papers. What had looked like reluctant fairness now felt like calculation. He let me walk through the door because I was carrying the knife he needed, Maya said. Evelyn's eyes softened. That is one way to say it. What do? We do not accuse a federal judge because of a paperclip. I know. We make him reach for something he thinks can hurt him. Maya frowned. A trap. A record, Evelyn corrected. A trap is what criminals set. A record is what honest people preserve when criminals act. They returned to the counter. Evelyn pulled a blank request form and turned it around. There are rumors, she said carefully, that Charles kept a backup drive. Something with communications, transactions, names. If Harlan believes that drive exists and believes it might reach federal oversight before he can control it, he may move. Does it exist? Evelyn looked at her over her glasses. Not in the way he will hear it. Maya understood slowly. You want him to think I have it. I want him to show us what he does when he thinks you have it. Maya's hands tightened on the briefcase. If he can still hurt my father, he can try, Evelyn said. That is why your father must stay out of this part. Maya shook her head. He won't want me doing it. If, then he raised you well. That almost broke her. Before leaving, Maya asked, why help now? Evelyn looked toward the courtroom hallway. Because yesterday, when Harlan made you kneel, you still put the pages back in order. A lot of people spend their lives waiting for someone powerful to become decent. You did not wait. You read. Maya went home with more questions than answers. Samuel was sitting at the kitchen table, turning his coffee cup between both hands. You found something, he said. Maya sat across from him. Maybe. He closed his eyes. Maya, I won't drag you back into it. You are me, he said quietly. Anything that touches you touches me. She reached across the table and took his hand. Then trust what you taught me. Samuel looked at her for a long time. I taught you to stand up. I did not teach you to stand in front of a moving train. No, Maya said. You taught me to read the schedule. For the first time that day, Samuel laughed softly. Then his face grew serious. Promise me one thing. What? If this becomes too much, you come home. Maya nodded, though they both knew she had not promised to stop. That night, she opened the briefcase again. The folders had changed. Samuel was free, so the first battle was over. But she added a new tab in black ink. Harlan. Under it, she placed the article connecting him to an old Monroe case, her notes from Evelyn, and one sentence written on a clean sheet of paper. Freedom is not the same as justice. Maya stared at the words until they blurred. Then she turned off the kitchen light and left the briefcase on the table, waiting for morning. The next morning, Maya met Evelyn Carter in the records room before the courthouse had fully awakened. The lights hummed overhead. A janitor pushed a cart far down the hall, and for a moment Maya thought of her father moving through Harrington and Vale before dawn, cleaning rooms where powerful people left their secrets in trash cans and locked drawers. Evelyn placed a paper cup of coffee in front of her. You look like someone who slept with one eye open. I slept with both eyes open, Maya said. That is bad for the complexion and worse for judgment. Maya almost smiled. What's the plan? Evelyn lowered her voice. We let Judge Harlan hear that Charles Whitfield kept a backup drive. Did he? Charles kept copies of many things. Men who betray others often keep insurance. But what Harlan needs to believe is that the drive connects Charles, Monroe, and someone inside this courthouse. Maya's fingers tightened around the coffee cup. Someone meaning him. Evelyn nodded. If Harlan is innocent, he will let the proper investigators handle it. If he is not, he will try to control it. And if he controls it, then we record the control. Maya looked around the quiet records room. Is this legal? Evelyn's eyes sharpened. We are not fabricating evidence. We are documenting his response to information. There is a difference. The real materials we already have will go to people who can protect them. Who? A lawyer I trust in judicial ethics, a reporter who knows how to verify before publishing, and a contact at the Federal Oversight Board who still believes retirement is too close to waste on cowardice. Maya let out a slow breath. You have been waiting for this. I have been preparing for the day waiting was no longer enough. The phrase stayed with Maya. They began carefully. Evelyn wrote nothing that could look like a false filing. She simply allowed a rumor to move through the places. Courthouse rumors naturally moved. A copied scheduling note, a quiet exchange near the clerk's counter, a mention that Miss Williams might have located a drive connected to the Whitfield matter and wanted to submit it before federal review began. Maya hated how easy it was. By noon, 2 clerks had heard it. By 2, a court officer asked whether that Williams girl was bringing in more trouble. By 3, Paul Reiner called Maya. What did you do? He asked. Maya stood outside the library with the briefcase against her hip. Why? Because Judge Harlan just issued a sealed order demanding preservation and surrender of any electronic storage device connected to the Whitfield investigation. Maya closed her eyes. He heard. Paul went silent. Maya, tell me this drive is real. It is real enough for him to reach. That is not an answer that helps me sleep. I'm sorry. No. Listen to me. If Harlan is dirty, he is dangerous in the way powerful people are dangerous. He can ruin records. He can ruin lawyers. He can make good people look reckless. Maya looked at the courthouse across the street. He already made my father look guilty. Paul's voice softened. Then we do this clean. Every step. That's why I'm calling you. You didn't call me. I called you. For now, Maya said. Paul sighed. Bring me Evelyn. That evening, the 3 of them met in Paul's office, after hours. The blinds were closed. The air smelled of old paper and reheated coffee. Evelyn sat straight-backed in the visitor chair, her purse in her lap. Maya stood near the window, too restless to sit. Paul read Harlan's order twice. He wants the drive surrendered directly to Chambers. Evelyn's mouth tightened. Not evidence intake? No. Chambers. Maya looked between them. That's wrong? Paul gave a humorless laugh. It is dressed as procedure, but yes, it is wrong enough to matter. Evelyn opened her purse and removed a small black external hard drive. This is the decoy. It contains harmless duplicate public filings, a few corrupted documents, and metadata that will suggest someone expected more to be there. Paul stared at her. You are a frightening woman, Miss Carter. I am an organized woman, Mr. Reiner. The frightened ones are usually the men who discover that too late. Maya asked. Where is the real evidence? Evelyn looked at her. Not in one place. Never. In one place. The article linking Harlan to Monroe, Tanya's notes, the access logs, the administrative discrepancy, and the Bayline lead are already copied. Bayline? Paul asked. Not yet, Evelyn said. But if Harlan touches the decoy, he may show us where to look next. Paul leaned back. This is thin. It is a thread, Evelyn replied. Threads are how you find seams. Maya sat down at last. What do I do? Evelyn turned to her. You do what Harlan expects. You look nervous. You look inexperienced. You let him believe he can take the drive from you and end the story. Maya's throat tightened. He already thinks I'm small. Then use the mistake he keeps making. The next morning, Maya entered the courthouse with the decoy drive sealed in a small evidence envelope Paul had marked and logged in his own office. Samuel had not wanted her to go. He stood in their kitchen before sunrise, his hands wrapped around a coffee mug. I just got out, Maya. I know, and you're walking back in. She touched his arm. Not alone. He looked at her briefcase. That thing has carried too much. So have you. Samuel's eyes softened with pain. Baby, a man can survive being wronged. It is harder watching his child walk toward the people who did it. Maya wanted to promise him safety. She could not. I'll come home. He nodded, accepting the only promise she could make. At the courthouse, Harlan's clerk met Maya before she reached the courtroom. Miss Williams, Judge Harlan has ordered the device surrendered immediately. Maya held the envelope close. My attorney said it should go through evidence intake. The judge's order says Chambers. She let fear show on her face because it was not entirely acting. I don't want to do anything wrong. The clerk's expression softened slightly. Then follow the order. Maya handed over the envelope. Across the hall, Evelyn watched without moving. Paul stood near the elevator, his jaw tight. The clerk disappeared through the side door leading to Chambers. Minutes passed. Maya counted them by the beat of her heart. When the clerk returned, the envelope was gone. Evelyn stepped beside Maya and spoke without looking at her. He took it. Maya whispered, Now what? Now we see whether he preserves it like a judge, Evelyn said, or handles it like a man with something to hide. By late afternoon, the first sign appeared. The docket entry did not say evidence received. It said, device reviewed, corrupted, no usable material. Paul called Maya immediately. He bypassed intake. No chain of custody. No forensic review. Maya sat at computer 7 in the library, staring at the docket entry. So, he changed the story before anyone else touched it. Yes, Evelyn, standing beside her, pointed to the timestamp. And he did it himself. Maya looked at the screen, then at the briefcase beside her chair. The hard drive had never been the evidence. Harlan's hand reaching for it was, by sunset, the false hard drive had done what Maya and Evelyn hoped it would do. It had made Judge Victor Harlan touch the case with his own hands. Paul Reiner stood behind Maya at computer 7 in the public library, reading the docket entry for the third time. Device, reviewed, corrupted, no usable material, he said quietly. No evidence intake number. No forensic signature. No independent custodian. Maya kept her eyes on the screen. He wanted it dead before anyone else could read it. Evelyn Carter stood beside them with her purse tucked under one arm. Not dead. Buried. Powerful men prefer burial. It looks more official. Paul glanced at her. Can we prove he handled it himself? Evelyn removed a folded page from her purse. Chambers access log. The clerk took the envelope in at 10:14 a.m. Harlan's private terminal opened the docket at 10:31. The corrupted entry was filed at 10:42. Maya looked at the times. 28 minutes. Too fast for a proper review, Paul said. Too fast for anything except fear, Evelyn replied. The next step came from a mistake Harlan did not know he had made. In marking the device corrupted, he used an internal reference code that did not belong to the Williams case. Evelyn recognized the format immediately. "That code belongs to a sealed civil matter," she said. Paul stiffened. "Which one?" Evelyn's voice lowered. "Bayline Civic Consulting." Maya wrote the name in her notebook. "What is Bayline?" "A company that appears in places it should not," Evelyn said. "Consulting contracts, civic compliance reviews, advisory fees. Always clean language. Always difficult to explain." Paul pulled up the Maryland Business Registry. Bayline Civic Consulting had a downtown mailing address, no real website, and officers listed through another entity. Maya had learned enough by now to recognize fog when someone sold it as structure. They searched public records, old filings, ethics disclosures, and corporate reports. They did not hack, guess passwords, or touch anything sealed. Evelyn insisted on that. "If we break rules to catch him," she said, "he will put us in the same mud and call it fairness." The thread tightened slowly. Bayline had received consulting payments from companies tied to Monroe Strategic Legal Consultants. Several payments appeared within weeks of Harlan's procedural rulings that benefited Monroe-linked clients. The amounts were not enormous, but they were steady. Quiet money, patient money. Maya stared at the pattern. He didn't need one big bribe. "No," Paul said. "He needed a river small enough. Nobody called it a flood." Evelyn pointed to one payment date. "This one came 3 days after Harlan sealed a discovery dispute involving Monroe." Maya flipped through her folder. "And this one came after he limited document production in another case." Paul leaned closer. "How did you find that?" "You told me to write simple questions. I started asking why the same names kept standing near closed doors." Evelyn gave the smallest smile. "Good." By 8 o'clock, Paul's office became their war room. Tanya Reed joined by phone, careful and nervous but willing. When Paul read her the name Bayline, she went silent. "Tanya?" Maya asked. "I saw that name once," Tanya said. "Not in the official ledger. In a note attached to a reclassification Charles wanted removed." "What did it say?" Tanya exhaled. "Bayline clears the bench." Paul's face darkened. "The bench? As in the court?" "I don't know. That's why I remembered it. It sounded wrong." Maya wrote the phrase down, pressing so hard the pen nearly tore the paper. "Bayline clears the bench." The room felt colder. Paul looked at Evelyn. "This goes to federal oversight now." "Not yet," Evelyn said. Maya looked up sharply. "Why not?" "Because Harlan will try to seal the doorway the moment he smells smoke. We need him to do it where others can see." Paul frowned. "You expect him to call a hearing?" "I expect him to call a sealed hearing," Evelyn said. "He will say it is to protect the integrity of the investigation. In truth, it will be to bury Monroe, Bayline, and anything that points back to him." Maya felt fear move through her, but it no longer had the same power. "Then we bring witnesses. We bring records," Evelyn corrected, "and people who know how to protect them." Paul nodded slowly. "Federal Oversight Board, Press, Ethics Council. Only after we have notice of the hearing," Evelyn said. "Until then, no speeches, no accusations." Maya looked at the folder labeled Harlan. "He humiliated me in that courtroom. He threatened my father. He used us." Evelyn's voice softened. "Yes, and if you walk in angry, he will make your anger the story. Walk in with order, and he will have to answer the record." Later that night, Maya went home to find Samuel awake at the kitchen table. He had made tea he had not drunk. "You were with Evelyn," he said. "And Paul. That doesn't make me less worried." Maya sat across from him and placed her notebook on the table. "We found a company called Bayline. It links back to Monroe. Maybe to Harlan." Samuel closed his eyes. "Lord, I know. No, baby. You don't know. Men like that don't fall because someone points. They fall because the ground under them gives way." Maya touched the notebook. "Then we keep digging." Samuel reached across the table and covered her hand. "I am proud of you. I am also scared for you. Both can be true." Maya's voice softened. "I'm scared too." "Good," he said. "Fear keeps you from confusing courage with pride." The next morning, Harlan moved exactly as Evelyn predicted. A sealed status hearing was scheduled for Monday morning. The stated purpose was to review evidence integrity in the Whitfield-related matter and determine whether certain materials should remain restricted from public disclosure. Paul called Maya before she finished reading the notice. "He's closing the door," he said. Maya looked at the briefcase on the kitchen table. Page 17 and page 29 were still inside, worn now at the corners from being handled so many times. "No," she said. "He thinks he is." By noon, Paul had sent protected copies of the records to Judicial Ethics Council. Evelyn contacted her oversight source. Tanya provided a sworn statement about the Bayline note. A reporter from a Baltimore investigative paper agreed to be present if the hearing opened under federal authority. Maya prepared one clean timeline, not a speech, not an accusation, a timeline. Samuel watched her line up the pages. "You always did like things in order," he said. Maya smiled faintly. "Only because lies hate it." On Monday morning, Maya walked back into courtroom 4B with Paul on one side and Evelyn a few steps behind her. The floor had been cleaned since the day she knelt there, but Maya still remembered where each page had fallen. This time, she did not look down. She carried the record. Courtroom 4B was almost empty when Maya entered, and that made it feel more dangerous. A sealed hearing did not have the restless noise of a public courtroom. There were no curious spectators, no soft whispers from the gallery, no reporters scribbling in the back rows. Only Judge Harlan on the bench, Paul Reiner at the defense table, Evelyn Carter near the clerk's station, Maya with her briefcase, and Samuel Williams sitting behind her with both hands folded over his cane. He did not need the cane forever. The knee he had injured in court was healing, but Maya knew why he brought it. It reminded everyone that procedure had already left marks. Judge Harlan looked down at them. "This hearing concerns evidence, integrity. It is not a public forum for conspiracy theories." Paul stood. "Your Honor, before any ruling on sealed material, the defense requests that the court acknowledge preservation objections already filed with Judicial Ethics Council." Harlan's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Reiner, you are walking close to contempt." Maya felt Samuel shift behind her. Paul did not sit. "I am walking close to the record, Your Honor." Harlan turned to Maya. "Miss Williams, your father is free. Most families would have the sense to accept that blessing and leave the courthouse alone." Maya's voice was quiet. "Freedom is not a blessing when it is handed out to hide who built the cage." His mouth tightened. "Careful." She lowered her eyes for a second. "Not from surrender, but control." "I am being careful, Your Honor. That is why everything is in order." Harlan leaned back. "You are not counsel. You are not a party. You are a young woman who has confused attention with authority." Before Maya could answer, the side doors opened. Assistant District Attorney Ellison entered first, pale but composed. Behind him came a woman in a dark federal suit, carrying a leather folder with a gold seal. Two investigative reporters followed with court authorization papers in hand. Harlan's voice sharpened. "What is this?" The woman stepped forward. "Judge Harlan, I am Deputy Inspector Marlene Shaw with the Federal Oversight Board. This hearing is now subject to federal observation due to preservation concerns involving court-handled evidence." The silence that followed felt like the moment before glass broke. Harlan's face did not change much, but Maya saw his right hand close around the edge of the bench. "This is highly irregular," he said. Evelyn Carter stood. So was bypassing evidence intake. Harlan turned on her. "Miss Carter, you will remember your position." Evelyn's voice stayed calm. "I have remembered it for 38 years. Paul handed a folder to Deputy Inspector Shaw. "This is the timeline. It includes the original Williams access discrepancy, the Whitfield email, Tanya Reid's sworn statement, the Monroe connection, the decoy drive order, Chambers access logs, the corrupted docket entry, and the Bayline civic consulting payments." Harlan gave a cold laugh. "You expect this court to entertain a story built by a clerk, an overworked public defender, and a daughter who embarrassed herself on this very floor?" Maya stepped forward. "No, Your Honor. I expect the record to speak." Shaw looked at her. "Miss Williams?" Briefly, Maya opened the briefcase. This time, no one knocked the papers from her hand. Charles Whitfield framed my father because my father was easy to blame, she said. When we proved that, the story was supposed to end with Charles. But after the hearing, I found a Monroe paperclip on your desk. Harlan scoffed. A paperclip? Yes, sir. One small thing. Small things matter when powerful people forget they leave them behind. Paul continued for her. After that, a controlled rumor about a backup drive was allowed to reach Chambers. Judge Harlan then ordered the device surrendered directly to him, not evidence intake. Shaw opened her folder. Our preliminary review confirms the order, Evelyn added. The device was marked corrupted less than 30 minutes after entering Chambers. No forensic custodian handled it. Harlan's voice hardened. The court has discretion over sensitive materials, Paul replied. Not discretion to alter chain of custody. Ellison stepped forward, shame heavy in his tone. The state has reviewed the materials. We cannot oppose federal inquiry. That sentence landed harder than any accusation. Maya placed one page on the table. Bayline Civic Consulting received payments tied to Monroe-linked matters after rulings from this court. Tanya Reed identified the phrase, Bayline clears the bench from a reclassification note connected to Charles Whitfield. Harlan rose. Enough. This is defamatory, reckless, and beneath the dignity of this court. Evelyn looked up at him. No, Judge Harlan. It is a record. The word stopped him. Deputy Inspector Shaw closed her folder. Judge Victor Harlan, pending formal review, you are directed to recuse yourself immediately from all Whitfield, Monroe, Bayline, and Williams-related matters. Your Chambers records will be preserved under federal order. For the first time, Harlan looked old. Not weak. Not sorry. Only exposed. He looked at Maya, and his voice dropped. You have no idea what you've started. Maya remembered the dusty floor, her bleeding wrist, her father falling, and the laughter that had filled the room when she said she was his lawyer. Yes, I do, she said. I started reading. No one laughed. Harlan stepped down from the bench slowly. His robe moved around him like a shadow losing shape. The reporters wrote quickly. Ellison looked at the floor. Paul exhaled as if he had been holding his breath for years. Evelyn remained still, but Maya saw her hand tremble once against the clerk's desk. Samuel stood behind Maya. Baby, he said softly. She turned. His eyes were wet, but he was smiling. You didn't just clear my name, he said. You made the room tell the truth. Maya looked at the empty bench. It seemed smaller without him on it. For the first time since she had walked into courtroom 4B, Maya understood that power was not the bench, the robe, or the voice that threatened life from above. Power was the paper that survived, the witness who spoke, the clerk who kept copies, the lawyer who woke up, and the daughter who refused to leave a lie neatly filed. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. This time, Maya did not hide behind Paul or Samuel. She stepped forward with the briefcase in her hand. A reporter called, Miss Williams, what do you call what happened in there? Maya looked back at the courthouse doors. Not revenge, she said. A record. Then, she walked down the steps beside her father, while behind them, for the first time, Judge Victor Harlan's name was the one being written into a file he could not control. 3 months later, Samuel Williams arrived early at the Enoch Pratt Free Library with a box of folding chairs in his arms and a fresh shine on his shoes. He did not work for Harrington and Vale anymore. He never went back to those marble floors. After Charles Whitfield was indicted and Judge Victor Harlan was suspended pending federal investigation, the firm offered Samuel a private apology, a settlement, and a position with a better title. Samuel listened politely, thanked them for the offer, and walked out with the same quiet dignity they had mistaken for weakness. Now he worked at a neighborhood legal outreach center, helping people fill out forms, find court dates, request records, and understand words that had frightened them for years. He was not a lawyer, and he never pretended to be, but he knew what it felt like to sit across from a system that had already decided your story was too small to matter. At 6:30, the library meeting room began to fill. Bus drivers came in wearing work jackets. Nursing aides arrived with tired feet and careful questions. A cafeteria cook brought her sister, who had a court notice folded in her purse. 2 retired men from Samuel's church sat near the front, whispering about how everything had changed since the Harlan story hit the papers. Near the window, Tanya Reed sat quietly with her hands folded, no longer hiding, though still learning how to be seen. Paul Reiner stood by the coffee urn, pouring cups for people and answering questions with patience he had once lost. Evelyn Carter took the first seat in the front row, silver hair pinned neatly, notebook open before anyone spoke. Maya Williams stood near the small podium, looking at the handwritten sign taped to the wall. Know Your Rights Night. The letters were uneven because Samuel had insisted on writing them himself. You made the Y too big, Maya said. Samuel looked at the sign with great seriousness. Rights deserve a big Y. She laughed softly. It felt good to laugh without fear waiting behind it. Her wrist had healed, leaving only a thin line across the skin. Sometimes, when she was tired, she touched it, without thinking. It reminded her of the courtroom floor, the scattered pages, and the way laughter could turn into silence when truth found its voice. Samuel stepped beside her. You ready? No. That means you're honest. I thought you were supposed to say, I'll do fine. You'll do fine because you're honest. Maya looked at him. His knee still bothered him on rainy mornings, but he stood straighter now. Not because the pain was gone, but because shame was. At 7, Evelyn tapped her pen once against her notebook. Begin before they start asking me procedural questions. I retired for a reason. The room chuckled. Maya stepped to the podium. She did not wear a suit from a fancy store. She wore a navy dress from a discount rack, low shoes, and the same old brown briefcase beside her feet. This time, no one laughed at it. Good evening, she said. My name is Maya Williams. I'm not a lawyer. A few people smiled knowingly, she continued. But I'm studying to become one. And until then, I'm someone who learned the hard way that the law can be used to frighten you, confuse you, or make you feel small. It can even be used to hide the truth. But the law also leaves a record. And if we learn how to read that record, power has fewer places to hide. No one moved. Maya looked across the room at faces lined by work, age, worry, and hope. These were people who understood bills due on Friday, bus routes before sunrise, medicine bottles on kitchen counters, and the fear of an envelope from the court arriving in the mail. My father was accused because someone powerful believed his name would be easy to blame, she said. Charles Whitfield thought a janitor's life could be rearranged around a lie. Judge Harlan thought a robe could turn corruption into procedure. They were both wrong because people kept records. People spoke up, and people refused to let my father disappear into a plea. Samuel lowered his eyes. Maya softened her voice. But my father should never have needed his daughter to stand up in court and say, Your Honor, I'm my dad's lawyer. He should have had a system that looked at the evidence before threatening his life. That is why we're here tonight. For the next 40 minutes, Maya did not give a speech as much as she opened doors. She explained how to request a public record, why no one should sign a plea without understanding it, how to keep copies of letters, why dates mattered, how to write down names after every phone call, and how to ask a lawyer direct questions without apologizing for needing answers. A woman in a green coat raised her hand. What if the lawyer gets annoyed? Paul stepped forward before Maya could answer. Then ask anyway. Annoyed is not a legal standard. The room laughed, and Paul accepted it with a humble nod. A retired bus driver asked, What if they make you feel stupid? Maya looked at Samuel, then answered, Bring someone with you who remembers you're not. Evelyn added from the front row, and bring paper. Feelings fade under pressure. Paper stays. People began taking notes. By the end of the night, the sign-up sheet was full. 3 people asked Paul about old cases. Tanya quietly offered to help review financial documents for anyone dealing with wage theft or settlement confusion. Evelyn corrected a man's form with the same stern kindness she had once shown Maya. Samuel folded chairs while people thanked him, though he kept saying, Thank Maya. But many thanked him anyway, not because he had argued in court, but because he had survived being used and still opened the door for others. After the room emptied, Maya stood by the window, looking out at Baltimore under streetlights. Samuel came beside her. When you stood up that first day and said you were my lawyer, did you believe it? Maya smiled faintly. No, I was terrified. Then, why did you say it? She looked back at the room, at the stacked chairs, the empty coffee cups, the forgotten pencil on the table, the sign that said "Know Your Rights Night." Because somebody had to stand where a lawyer should have been. Samuel nodded slowly. And now? Now I'm going to become one. Evelyn closed her notebook with a snap. Then, start by learning not to skip dinner before public speaking. Paul lifted the last paper cup of coffee. Seconded. Maya laughed. And this time the sound was not defensive. It was free. Outside, the city moved as it always had. With sirens, buses, tired workers, lit windows, and people carrying private burdens home. But something had changed in one library room. Not enough to fix the whole system. Not enough to undo every wrong. But enough to prove that silence was not the only inheritance poor people had to accept. Samuel took the old briefcase from the floor and handed it to Maya. "It's getting heavy," he said. She took it carefully. "Good. That means it's carrying more than fear now." They stepped out together into the Baltimore night. Months earlier, they had laughed when Maya Williams said, "Your Honor, I'm my dad's lawyer." They stopped laughing when she saved her father. And they fell silent when she proved the judge himself had tried to make justice his accomplice. Now, in the place where people came to read, learn, and begin again, Maya understood the truth her father had been teaching her all along. A clean floor did not make a man small. A dusty record did not make the truth weak. And justice, real justice, did not belong to the loudest voice in the room. It belonged to the people brave enough to keep reading. The lesson of this story is that justice does not belong only to the powerful, the educated, or the people sitting behind high desks. Sometimes, truth begins with one ordinary person who refuses to stay silent. Maya Williams teaches us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to stand up even when the whole room laughs at you. Her father's dignity, Evelyn's wisdom, Paul's change of heart, and Tanya's testimony all remind us that injustice survives when good people look away. Real justice requires patience, records, courage, and the willingness to keep reading until the truth has nowhere left to hide. Thank you for staying with this story until the very end. If it touched your heart, I would truly love to hear your thoughts on the storytelling, the emotional pacing, or whatever stayed with you after listening. Every comment you share helps make the next stories more honest, moving, and meaningful. And if you have a powerful or meaningful story of your own, please do not hesitate to send it to the channel. It may become the next story to touch and inspire thousands of others. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.